Rob and Marcus here. We are excited to talk to you about topics related to modern men. The mission of Friends and Brothers is to change lives and be a resource for you to find or regain your inner yelp. Thanks for tuning in today as we talk about Marcus' intro to fitness. Marcus, the spotlight is on you right now for the next 20 to 30 minutes.
Okay, I'll do the best I can.
So fitness, you've said before, fitness is kind of part of your blood, not just your lifestyle. So what prompted you? What got you started?
That's a great question, Rob. I appreciate it. Well, I'll try and keep this short. When I was a youngster, I was always very, very active as an athlete. So I was a competitive swimmer, track athlete. I did all kinds of sports like football and baseball, and up in the Northeast, we played lacrosse and hockey. Well, I have an eye injury. And
was that caused from the sports?
No, I was injured at school by an accident that occurred in the classroom. But what it ended up happening is that I could participate in all these sports, and I did. However, when I got to a point when I was in that coming on the teenage years, everybody started getting bigger and faster, and balls started moving quicker, and I couldn't see things. And my parents thought, well, all right, we don't want to have any major injuries occurring to you. You have an injury to your eye. We don't want you to lose the other one.
Right.
So we're going to restrict you from doing these things. Now, these days, you hear a lot of these great stories in the movies and things like that, where they just keep pushing through. But at that time, many years ago, we didn't have all that experience.
Right.
So what ended up happening is in my school, I went to a private school. You were specifically geared into the strength and conditioning program if you're a participant in like a baseball, a football.
Okay, so you couldn't do strength and conditioning as a non-athlete?
No.
Or a non-team member?
If you're a general athlete or a general student, you're just taking gym class. Now it's playing like basketball, volleyball, tennis, whatever kind of athletics going around.
Right.
But the strength and conditioning aspect was solely for the school's premier athletes at the time. Again, you're talking about typically the juniors and seniors. So what ended up happening is I got, for whatever grace of God and the coaches at the school I went to, approval to, as a 14-year-old, start with their strength and conditioning program.
Right.
Now, our main strength and conditioning coach was a riot. He was a retired Army Ranger, so he would old school everything. But I appreciated that because my dad was a Marine, so it had, I could relate completely. But what it helped with was it allowed me an avenue. Again, talking about fitness, it allowed me an avenue where I was somewhat restricted in participating in a team competitive sport, where I like to get in the mix of things and rough people up because I like to play defense. I like to hit people. That's I'm not an MMA person. That's not what I'm saying, but that's where it comes from.
You're almost guaranteed to lose the other eye then.
Yeah, I know, exactly. But I mean, that's what I like. I enjoyed that. Okay, and I still enjoy that as an adult. But that comes from the strength and conditioning piece from an overall fitness. So anyway, what got me started again is getting intro into really lifting weights and exercise. And through these coaches, as well as the juniors and seniors in my high school, learning from them, because I'm this piddly little 14-year-old, and we're talking about 17, 18-year-olds, when at the time you could drink legally at 18 years old. So for me,
which I think is crazy.
Yeah, I was like this little kid with these grown men half the time.
So, I mean, I'm 14 years old going into, you're high school freshman, right? At this point?
Probably a freshman, sophomore, freshman, yeah.
And, going as a freshman, doing a strength and conditioning class with a bunch of seniors, right, who could legally drink at that point, I'd be scared shitless. I'm not going to lie, right?
Right.
Not even just, like taking my shirt off in the locker room, yet alone,
believe me, that
am I going to get hazed, right?
Yeah.
Like all these crazy things that like you hear about or think about, like, in movies or whatever, like you think,
100%.
okay, shit, all this stuff is going to happen to me. So I have to imagine that created quite a bit of anxiety at least at first.
Definitely. I mean, the average teenager, especially that age, is so body conscious. I mean,
Right.
as a kid, my main thing was I didn't want to be the skinny guy. I grew up as all my brothers. I've got three siblings, and we're all 6 feet tall, and they're all 40 pounds lighter than I am. And so as a kid, I never that never appealed to me. I never wanted to be the thin,
Are you the
skinny guy.
oldest or
That
the youngest?
I'm the oldest.
Ah, okay.
That couldn't take care of business, if that makes any sense. Now, like I said, I wasn't afraid of any of it. It was just, when you're in an environment where you're the little 14-year-old kid, in a room full of, like you said, older guys, yeah, you're afraid you're going to get a big wedgie, or you're going to get thrown into the shower, or whatever
Right.
hazing is going to happen. But that never happened with me. I mean, the guys were awesome. The coach was awesome. They took me under their wing. They thought it was cool having this young, little guy in there trying to learn what the hell they were doing, you know, doing the bench press and dumbbell curls and chin ups and all that kind of fun stuff. But again, this is old school, dirty gym rat type of working out though.
So I'm
So
going to
it's
come
fun.
back to this question
Yeah.
in a little bit, and that's
Okay.
how encouraging someone else who might not have been raised as such,
Yep.
who maybe didn't like, yeah, you're there's anxiety, but how do you still build through that? Because even as an adult, it's a different type of anxiety that we might get for the first time. So I want to return to that question, but continue
Okay.
on, please.
So where do we want to go in timeline?
So okay, so you started out, you had some really good mentors. I think that's really important to note,
Yep.
because you went to a private school. I think in a public school it might not have necessarily played out that way, and maybe I'm just speculating. Um, so in a I'd hope that you have that one can get those same type of mentors, regardless whether in the public or private school or in a whole different type of environment altogether, right? And thankfully, I think 30 years later, roughly, that we're in a position that we, as a society, have learned, you know, that type of lack of encouragement is not conducive to building better people within our community, right? Um,
Yeah.
and hopefully it's not so much because I mean there's anti-bullying laws out now, right? But um there isn't necessarily anti-bullying laws for adults per se, or maybe there is and we just don't really see it that way. It is obviously geared more towards the the 18 and under crowd, right, as it should be. Um so what kept you going then during high school? You had great mentors, right? What else kept you going, kept you motivated? Because eventually you got to a point where you didn't have those mentors. Maybe you were the mentor now, like by the time you were 17, 18, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm very competitive. So for me, um, the going into the gym was my place to compete with the guys who were the athletes who were able to do certain things. Like our school had, and a lot of schools maybe back in those times frame too. I don't see it much anymore, but they had like rewards or awards given to the guys who could bench a certain amount or who could squat a certain amount or were part of a club.
Right.
Um, and that was something I always aspired to. I could never do it. I mean, I tried my darndest. Even as a say 17, 18-year-old, I was working my ass off to try and just get to the 225 club, right? So from a competitive spirit standpoint, I was in there grinding it out every day, doing whatever I could, to listen to what the guys were doing, have fun in the meantime. But as the oldest sibling of four boys, I didn't have an older brother or older sibling, to look to. So that's why I had the advantage of being the oldest of a number of boys, guys, all my brothers, but the advantage of being around guys all the time, I could step right into with these older guys, be like, oh, I would just attach myself to one of the older guys as my buddy. I become
Okay.
like their, so like you go around school, you be, hey Marcus, yo, what's up, my, that kind of a thing. So you become their like little
So you
mascot.
became part of, you kind of like you got yourself into that club, so to speak,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. You
Now,
you
but
become you become part of the cool or the in guy
yeah, yeah,
group or whatever.
you had your crew, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Now, there came a point though that you were a senior, right? So
yeah.
you had maybe a few freshmen in there at this point, sophomores, obviously some juniors and some other
That's right.
seniors. So now you're one of the leaders of sorts, right?
That's right.
But were you always were you the strongest one even as a senior then, or
Not no, not from a physical standpoint. Maybe maybe from a mental standpoint. I don't know. I don't want to compliment myself, but yeah, to your point, I mean that's one of those things that I am wholeheartedly in support of. I mean, is that trickle down effect? You got taught, you teach others, and you bring them up, um, you bring them up through the ranks, the same way. Now, I might get some feedback from you here, but I believe that there's got to be a certain amount of taunting and teasing and fun when it's geared around certain things that we're doing. I don't mean in a bullying, mean kind of way, but what I'm saying is like there's got to be a certain sense of that competitive nature.
oh, you
Guys
definitely
like to
have to
give each
have,
other shit
yeah.
all the time,
Oh, yeah.
and
I give shit
that
to everyone.
yeah, you have there. That's what I mean. It's like it's not in a put down kind of way. What I mean is like in a way it's such that inspires that person to do something. And if people know how I motivate others, the ironic part of this is that I'm not motivated the same way. Like you would have to, in order to motivate me, you'd have to put a line in the sand. I'm going to cross it.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So like if you were to tell me I can't do something, I'm the guy who's going to say, well, just watch me.
Yeah,
So
I definitely have that, and maybe it's from my own personal reflection. I don't know if everyone is necessarily like that, but I guarantee I've seen it with others where you put that line in the sand of sorts, right? It says, you can cross this line or not, and but you know there it is, right?
right,
And 9 times out of 10, they're gonna try to cross that, right? Someone especially who has that will or drive. Now, if someone doesn't give a flying F about that, they might be like whatever, but maybe they just don't have that same type of motivation, at least for that activity. But one thing that comes to mind, though, a few years ago, I was at a conference and Megan Ripto was the lunch keynote speaker, and she was captain of the women's national team over several, World Cups where the women have been very consistent in winning, and I think it reflects here just as much. You have to challenge yourselves mindfully and as a team. So that doesn't mean you're always patting each other on the back, even when you miss a goal. Why did you miss the goal? You can because you have to trust each other to be better and stronger together, right? And without that, without your teammate and challenging them to be better, because they can be better, they're not going to get better, right? And that's where I really appreciated that comment from her because, where, you know, as coaches now, right, we want to encourage our athletes, but we need to also kind of push them a little bit of sorts or challenge them, right? Because that's where they're going to grow. And when they're growing, our group is stronger. We're faster,
well,
right?
well, to go back to my experience again, getting started in this whole thing again, that partially is where that learned behavior came from. Is that environment,
Right.
and that's also where I don't like the word to ever come out of people's mouths is that word can't. I can't do something. Well, you haven't tried it, so you haven't succeeded at trying it. And I'm talking from a fitness standpoint. You can translate that into other things, but yeah, I sure as hell can tell you I couldn't do one pull up. I couldn't do, 40-pound dumbbell curls. I couldn't do 100 pounds on the bench press,
Right.
whatever those numbers were as a kid. But if it was there, I was trying until I could,
Yeah,
right?
it's funny
So
today.
it,
Okay, go ahead.
no, what I was going to say. So what that also is, I would like to share again is, keep in mind that whether or not you're in competitive sports or you're doing something like what we're talking about now from a strength and conditioning standpoint, that instilled in me in teenage years and then has been amplified through adulthood, but it instilled this kind of work ethic, as well as it honed in that self competitiveness to where I didn't need to have somebody pushing me, but to say little things would get you fired up to do it, like you're talking about from a leadership standpoint,
Yep.
right? Because everybody gets coached a little bit different. What
As
were
they
you going
should.
to
They're
say?
different people.
Yeah, of course. What were you going to say, though?
You know what? I forgot. Um,
So where did I take it from here?
so yes, post high school, what
Yeah,
happened next? I mean, you're a coach today, right? And you've
yeah.
been a coach for a while, but you haven't always been a coach since you graduated high school. So what happened
So high
next?
school happens, going to college, you're going through, the college years, you get your degree, those kinds of things. But what ended up happening is that you end up, or at least I did, because of my passion for constantly finding the new secret sauce of whatever that may be. Not using um, PEDs. What I'm talking about is the new exercise, or what's this guy doing, reading all the magazines. That was educating myself. And in that process, I'm putting together these workouts and programs that I'm working with my buddies, or I'm coaching somebody that I didn't know that I was actually coaching because they're a workout partner that I met at the gym, those kinds of things. Then over the
Right.
years, it just developed into, oh, well, now you're actually training people, and you're not getting one paid for it, but you have the skill set that's developed from all these years of trial and error. Again, I graduated high school at 18 years old, a buck 45 wet, and I'm still the same size height wise.
Yeah.
So I weigh a good 45 pounds heavier than that
But
from when
that's
I graduated
what
high school.
muscle mostly.
Yeah, muscle between the ears, I guess.
Oh,
Um,
that's not hot air?
yeah, it's hot air. But the eventuality again is that it led into, again, as a corporate guy, I'm working in a corporate environment. Fitness was always, I was always active. I was always in the gym, always educating myself, because again, I wanted to feel better, look better. I couldn't compete in things that I wanted to as a kid, so this was my outlet. A lot of things that we have these days, like you bring up CrossFit. What I love about CrossFit, although I'm not a CrossFit fan, is the the competitive nature of it with your fellow uh, people that are working with you, but in a
Right.
team focused environment. So like,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe I'm competing with you in that WOD, but we're pros. We're good. It's not one of those things where we're going into battle and going to, kill each other kind of thing.
Yeah, because I mean, it is the community, and that's one of the things I really like about it is the community, there that, I mean, I went into this, yeah, about 8 months ago, this particular gym where I am because we moved, but I didn't know anyone, and I've met some people, and everyone's really encouraging. So we got young guys and girls in there, older guys and girls in there. We have retirees in there, so we have people of different sort of groups of sorts. It's not just a bunch of like young, healthy, middle-aged guys or whatever, just going after each other. The one thing I really like about it is the Saturday workouts. Yes, we are kind of competing, but we're not at the same point because they're called partner WODs. So we partner up to get through a workout. So we're
Yeah.
trying. So it's not that we're competing against each other. We're competing against ourselves. So we don't because we don't want to be that weakest link of of our partner workout. And
Well,
that's been really fun. And it helps us meet, make friends too. But those are probably my favorite workouts is partner workouts.
yeah, that's the thing. That's also what keeps you, and again, it kept me going from an overall fitness and wellness standpoint, is you're having, again, you have this. We didn't have the current fitness trends that are going on. We're talking about 30 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. But
Something like
CrossFit didn't
CrossFit's
exist
only
30
been
years
around for
ago.
about 15, huh?
Yeah. CrossFit didn't exist 30 years ago.
Yeah,
Right.
it's only been around for about 15 years or so. So it's relatively new in this whole
Yeah.
situation. But
Because you either had
that's what
aerobics or you had the gym
the
to
weight room.
yourself. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So for for what you're talking about, to keep things going, my community was the guys that I was working out with, workout partners. And through that you're getting results, but at the same time you're seeing their results, and you're trying to compete with them in a friendly kind of environment, because
Right.
okay, well, let's do that one extra. All right, well, let's do. I have this one standing rule for me: you go, I go. Right. So
So define that more.
well, it's a short term. I think it's a military term, so I don't know where I picked it up, but you go, I go. So if
Define that. Yeah. What does that
yeah,
mean?
yeah. So if somebody, like in this case, if we're doing a workout and I'm gassed, I can't go, but you're up for another one, I'm going if you're going,
Okay. Gotcha.
right? I'm not jumping out of a plane if you're jumping out of a plane, but if you in a workout,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
environment, that's what
Yeah. You have to
I've
be a
kind
little
of
bit
have
smart.
this
Yeah.
standing rule is if you're going, I'm going,
Yeah, we don't
and
need to
vice
end up in a
versa. If I
hospital
go, then
or
you're
worse.
following. Huh?
We don't need to work out or end up in a hospital or worse.
No, no, no. There will be obviously a time where you say, okay, time out, enough's enough. But
Yeah. Yeah.
that is just this very productive way of balancing off one another, whatever that
Right.
means. So,
Cool.
but that's carried through.
So, I mean, so you didn't get into coaching right out of high school, though, right? Or right out of college, even. So, what led you to coaching then? Because you did have that corporate life
Yeah,
for
as
a
a
while
corporate
before you
guy,
got into strictly just coaching,
I
right?
thought, yep, I thought to myself, you know what? I really enjoyed working with the people and the folks that I've been training. Let's get certified and see what we can do. So from the corporate environment, I moved out of that and started focusing on the fitness and wellness sides of things, on a more professional standpoint. Um, Not
So,
having any experience in a business background when it comes to owning a gym or being in the personal training experience or space or any that kind of stuff. So the first step was getting certified. And from that, just kind of building your confidence with working people other than your friends and people that you were coaching, that were there. Now they were legitimate clients, not paying clients, but they were legitimately getting results based on what you're teaching them. In this case, you get certified, then from certification, you move into other avenues, whether or not you're offered a job or you start your own thing. But what kept me going is a whole other long story that I can get into on another podcast. But um, again, starting off in fitness as a teenage angst, working through college, all the foundation was laid there for consistency through results, and just keep on going one step at a time, one day at a time. Keep trying. Don't let can't be the word. You can do it, and eventually you get to where you want to go.
so what led you to go from corporate life? What was your trigger then that said, I'm done. We're going 100% all in, full
Well, because
send.
I saw a lot, yeah, because I saw a lot of what, quite honestly, clowns out there, quote unquote, training people, and they weren't coaching them or training them in a capacity that was getting that person the results that they were seeking. It was more of a social dialogue, having a conversation with a buddy of mine for 30 minutes and then going out the door.
Yeah.
And when I kept seeing that,
Right.
take two. Yeah. So again, going from the corporate environment, getting certified, and then from a certification, working with clients. Like I said, there's a whole other long story that goes into how I got to there to here. But um, at the end of the day, that was really the impetus that got me into fitness from a professional standpoint, was really wanting to help people and help people from all the things that I learned and all the failures that I learned and all the successes I learned along the way. Now, again, I've been learning and failing up until this point today. So don't get me wrong. That didn't stop when I
That it
started.
doesn't matter what we're doing in life, right? If we're
No,
not
no, no, no.
learning, we're not growing.
I'm constantly tweaking and changing and
Yes.
throwing new things in there and driving my people crazy because they're like, wait, you did this. So
Complacency is a death sentence to growth.
correct. Well, it's a good analogy too for when it comes to getting results in the overall wellness, especially the strength and body composition arena.
Right.
All too often we get stuck in complacent workouts and routines, and it's not going to get you where you want to
Yeah.
go.
So how many years have you been coaching now?
So going back to college, right out of college, so nearly 30 years.
And that's as a certified coach.
Yeah.
Wow. And how many years have you owned your the actual business?
So I've been a entrepreneur all my life, but I went into business for myself as a consultant in 2008.
Okay.
So about 15 years now. And
Yeah, I'm
then
gonna like
we opened the fitness center
carry the
or
one.
gym almost 10 years ago, eight, 8.5, 9, 10 years ago.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay.
Gotcha.
So, the passion for health and fitness led itself into another career altogether.
Yeah. That's awesome. That's a great story.
Well, it's just running the brushstrokes through, but I didn't want to get off when it came down to the starting point from the overall fitness standpoint, because again, don't be fooled. Oftentimes, here's the thing: is like oftentimes we see what it is in front of us, right? The person who's in front of us as being what they are because that's how they were born. That's no.
Right.
Okay, so you have maybe somebody who's I got to say this. Some of my best athletes are the athletes that are 150, 200 pounds overweight. Does that make sense? And the reason why I'm saying they're some of my best athletes is because they're the most motivated. Now, again, you have others that are highly trained that are great athletes too, but of the ones that are the best in my view, because they're the hardest working and dedicated, are the ones that I really know, like you talked about earlier, the why. They want to they're ready. They're done with all this. I can't wear this weight anymore. I can't do it. They're working their ass off. They're there showing up every day,
Right.
sweating, working instead of, well, I mean, that's the thing is I talked about this in the initial part of the podcast. I graduated high school 145 pounds wet. I'm 185, 190 now. That took, again, a good 30 something years to gradually put on some of that weight, right? But to maintain it, that's a trick.
To maintain that fitness,
Yeah.
right?
To maintain the fitness, the
Because you can
focus.
gain 30 pounds in a month. It's not going to be healthy.
Well,
And,
there's what's
and
called the newbie effect, right? So any person who's starting into strength training, if they've not done anything prior, typically, or even if in many cases they've laid off for many, many years,
yeah,
whatever
yeah,
they had from an overall physique and muscular, musculoskeletal structure in their teens and 20s, they can develop that very rapidly because that's that time frame in that newbie stage where you can put on a good 20 to 25 pounds relatively short period of time. So anybody who's just getting started can, again, if you've never done anything and you're 40, it's entirely possible that you can gain the muscle that you want to develop that metabolism that you need to get and move forward.
yeah. No, I was thinking if like you could gain the 30 pounds in a month, right, by eating a lot of Twinkies and shit for food, but we want to gain that weight healthy, right? And I think that's an interesting thing too, though, to point out, because you can tell me like 2 pounds of muscle is equivalent of like I mean, physically speaking, right? Like 2 pounds of muscle looks like 4 pounds of fat,
Well, yeah, it's just a
right?
one-to-one relationship.
So,
Yeah, so if it's
I
one
mean,
one pound
weight
of
for weight, a
muscle,
pound of muscle is a pound of fat, but like, I mean, how it looks on you though, it's
it's
like, I mean,
it's it's
like
three to
1 pound of
one.
muscle might look like this, whereas 2 pounds of muscle looks like this, or 2 pounds of
Yeah,
fat looks like this, right? Or a pound of
right.
fat,
So
right?
from a volume standpoint, it's a 3 to 1. So 1 pound of muscle, right, is three of your fists, basically,
Okay.
not two.
Okay. So it's 1 to 3, not 1 to 2,
Yeah,
as
it's a
I
three to
thought.
one
Okay.
ratio when
So
it
that's
comes
even
to
worse,
muscle
right?
growth.
Yeah.
Right.
So
So
yeah, but you
when
can
I'm talking,
but when you gain weight from eating healthy, right? You can gain weight from eating healthy, but if it's a healthy weight, right? So you could be 150, 150 pounds, but if you're overweight 10 pounds, you could easily gain 10 pounds of muscle and you're gonna look bigger, right? And it's gonna look vastly different. Or you just start eating healthier, you get that muscle and you might still be 150 pounds. You're not going to lose that 10 pounds. You lost the 10 pounds of fat, but you gained 10 pounds of muscle and it looks totally different on you.
well, yeah, I mean, I know I'm taking what I'm saying with a certain latitude, but I'm not talking about putting on body fat. I'm not talking
Right,
about
right.
becoming, gaining 50 pounds of fat. So when I'm talking about dedication and focus along these kinds of things from a consistency standpoint, it doesn't happen overnight. Is I didn't put on that weight overnight, and it's not where I put on this weight, and it's fat weight. All right, so I'm not diminishing what people are doing. What I'm sharing with you is that it takes time. When, like I said, when you have somebody who's in front of you, who is a professional fitness person, in this case, again, I'm a gym owner. I train people. I've worked with people for years and years and years and years. But again, it's taken years and years and years and years for me to get to where I am now. At my age, I'm 50. I'll be 55 years old in June.
What?
Right? So that being said, is I'm not, the whole goal, even from the teen years, has not been like I want to be Mr. Universe or Arnold Schwarzenegger or any of these. It was I want to be a badass when I'm 99, 101 years old, whatever it is. I want to be that old guy in the gym that all the guys and the ladies are like, damn.
Yeah.
Because you're still moving, you're still kicking ass.
Hey, I'm perfectly fine, being that 90-year-old world record holder in like the 100-meter fly or something, or
Yeah. Yep. So that's a little short story. We can get into all this stuff at another date, but those are the basics.
Good stuff. Yeah, I might have derailed on the point there, the conversation as to your journey, but I do appreciate you sharing that with us, Marcus, and I look forward to seeing how things turn out, especially when you're 65, 75, 85. I think you'll be well on your way to being one of the fittest people in your age group known to man.
Oh, okay. We'll see. Being like the Guinness Book of World Records. No, I just do it for myself, my friend.
Yeah. Good stuff. I appreciate that, Marcus. I appreciate the time sharing with us. And to our friends and guests and listeners, thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe. We'll be hearing from you soon.